Today we're going to talk about completing the square. This is another method to solve quadratics. So completing the square is a method of solving quadratic equations by first changing one side of the equation into a perfect square trinomial. And if you remember, this is something that we talked about in our last unit when we were talking about multiplying polynomials. Sometimes we would have polynomials that turned into perfect square polynomials. That was when we squared two binomials. So in 1 through 3, we're going to practice completing the perfect square by giving the polynomials in the form ax plus bx plus blank. To find the missing constant or value c, divide b by 2 and square it. Sorry for the bell. So what that means is we take 10, not 10x, but 10, divide that by 2, that's 5. 5 squared is 25. So our perfect trinomial is x squared plus 10x plus 25. Remember that perfect square trinomial is the a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. That's kind of what we're looking at here. So with a being x. So negative 18 divided by 2 would be negative 9. Negative 9 squared equals 81. So 81 would be the perfect trinomial. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 7 squared is 49. Those are our perfect trinomials. So we're going to solve the quadratic equation by using the steps below to complete the square. Step 1 is to isolate the variable terms on one side of the equation. That means if we have x's on both sides, we want it to be all on one side. Next, we're going to find the missing c value to create a perfect square trinomial and add c to both sides of the equation. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Factor and write as a binomial squared. And then we'll solve using the square root method. So looking at this, we have x plus 6x minus 4. So our first step is to isolate the variable terms on one side. We only want the variables on one side. So this we want gone to the other side. What you do is add 4 to both sides, and that gives you x squared plus 6x, because that cancels out, equals 4, and that's where we're at here. Now, my next step is to divide my middle term, my b, by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared equals 9. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. So then we have x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 13. If we took this, then we would know that saying x plus 3 squared equals 13. Solve by the square root method, which would be taking the square root on both sides. So we know that x plus 3 equals the square root of 13. And then subtract 3 on both sides. So our answer for that problem, our solutions, is x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 13. Okay, since we've practiced the square root method a lot, I don't want to go into too much detail just to save time for the notes, but if you have questions about it, please come ask. But I want to talk about, like, what could the possible square roots, or what are you adding here? I just kind of want to help you through the first steps. So my middle term divided by 2, because I already have my x's all on one side, everything else is on the other. So divided by 2, that's 1, 1 squared. So we have x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals, because I have to add 1 to both sides, so that equals 1, equals 10. So I know that x plus 1 squared equals 10. Then you would take the square root of both sides. X plus 1 equals the square root of 10. Subtract 1, x equals negative 1 plus or minus, and I'm doing the plus or minus because we talked about before when you do the square root method, there's two solutions. There's a positive and a negative, and so that's when you do the plus or minus. When you're doing your INDs and your exit tickets, I have provided this sign for you and the square root sign. I did make it to where, just because it was easier to input for you, you do not have to simplify the radicals for this assignment, for this lesson. Okay. All right, we're going to subtract 4 on both sides on this one. Cancels out. X squared minus 8x. And then minus 4 over here. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is plus 16, so you would add 16 over here as well. X squared minus 8x plus 16 equals 12. That's where you would square root. Subtract 10 on both sides. That cancels out. 12 minus 10 equals 2. And you would leave your C. 4x, 4 divided by 2, so that would be plus 4. So you're going to do plus 4 over here. X squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 6. I hope you're kind of getting the idea of this. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. X squared minus 12x equals 12. Negative 12 divided by 2 is 6, so plus 36. And then all I'm doing is, I know what this is squared, so it's x plus 6, because that's my A and my B, equals 12. All right, that is completing the square root method.